Good evening, everybody. This is the Board of Education meeting for Wednesday, September 21st, 2022. We are at Frederick School here on Frederick Road. I need a call to order and a roll call, please.
Weedman,
Here?
Mack,
Here.
Braden,
Here.
Albert,
Here.
LaCroix,
Oh, he's not here.
Miller,
Here.
and Nash.
Present.
Okay. That gives us a quorum. If we could please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, I need a motion to approve tonight's agenda, including the personnel addendum.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. First up for business tonight is a
Oh.
present.
Oh, I got to
Sorry.
call roll, sorry. Miller,
Aye.
Mack,
Aye.
Albert,
Aye.
Weedman,
Aye.
Braden,
Aye.
and Nash.
Aye.
Okay, I'll try that again. We have a presentation tonight from Mayor Taylor from the Village of Grays Lake on the economic developments that are going on in the city. Welcome. There's a lectern there, if you'd like. And the red button, or red.
Red is on. All right. Can you hear me? All right. Well, thank you very much for giving the village an opportunity to come talk to you about economic development. We're sharing this presentation with all of the taxing bodies that are within the village of Grays Lake. As you know, our boundaries are not the same, but we serve many of the same people. And when the village works on economic development to help diversify the property tax base, it has a benefit to all the taxing bodies. So tonight we want to talk about some of the tools that the village has used to drive economic development and how that has provided benefit in diversifying the property tax base, and then an opportunity to ask one of your board members to participate in an intergovernmental body that will work on economic development across the broad village to benefit all of our customers, students, patrons, the people that we're all here to serve. We do have Brian Drossler, who's a resident of Grays Lake, and he is a member of our Economic Development Commission, and so he's here tonight. The presentation is the result of a lot of hard work by the Economic Development Commission. So economic development is everyone's business in the village of Grays Lake, and the gentleman over there is going to help me by advancing the slides. So the next slide, please. Our purpose here is to grow Grays Lake and to bring a diverse group of people into the process. We have several tools that we've used to advance Grays Lake, and I'm going to walk you through those tools. Actually, I think I can probably be heard without the microphone. I'm going to get a little bit closer to this screen so that I can't quite read everything at this angle. So I'm going to walk across to the screen. Grays Lake, I think we all believe and agree that Grays Lake is a special community. It's one of the oldest communities in Lake County. We just celebrated our 125th anniversary, and actually 125 plus 1 due to the pandemic. Our 125th was actually in 2020. It's home to our namesake lake. We have a very traditional downtown that represents our history, but it's also very economically vital. And we have the College of Lake County. Recently, the village board represented Rich Anderson, a Grays Lake resident who had been on the CLC board for 40-some years. He started out there when it was just a few RVs in the field, and now it is a university center. Is there, you can do a 4-year degree there. So that's quite an asset to our community. And we have a thriving business community. And of course, we're the home to some very high-quality schools and high-quality education that attracts many people to our community, as well as a wonderful library and beautiful parks. We have a lot to offer. And so it's a special place to live. If we can grow it economically, we can increase the specialness. Specialness is a word, but we can increase what makes Grays Lake valuable to all of us and to our constituents. Next slide, please. This represents the demographics of our community. The purple indication is about the village. So the village right now is just over 21,000 people, and we're just over 7,000 acres. Then you can see, they're not quite circles, but you can see the dark orange and lighter orange and yellow as it moves out. That represents our reach financially for business investment and our reach to population who would come into town to shop. Within Grays Lake, the average household size is just under 3 people at 2.7. We have almost 8,000 houses, and the median income is about $94,000. As you expand out, you can eventually reach 68,000 households, all with an average size of about 3 and a median income of about $87,000. So that's a pretty good area to reach, and it helps us, this data helps us attract many businesses to locate in the center of Lake County, the amenities we offer, but also our reach of who is within. What you can see here is just a 15-minute drive into our community. Next slide, please. When we look at the census data we collected in 2010 and then that was available in 2020, you can see that the population of Grays Lake is going to remain relatively stable at just above 21,000. We've gone down just a little bit in population, about 100 people. We're projected to go down a little bit more. Some of that will just depend upon who stays, who retires and moves away, how many children are born. Households are probably going to stay flat. The ground that is zoned residentially is pretty much developed. Most of the rest of the ground that is open is available for other uses. So we expect households to stay pretty much flat over the next few years, maybe even going down slightly. All right, next slide, please. If you look at our population by age, you can see what we were in 2019 and what's projected to be for 2024. The age group that's going to see the largest amount of growth based upon the projections will be 25 to 34. And then we're going to see also growth then in the 55 and older category. And that will continue to grow. So we expect to see more retirees in town, but also more people who would be buying homes and starting families over the next few years. Next slide, please. So why is economic development important? Well, for several reasons. It grows the tax base, which benefits all of the taxing bodies in town, and then in turn benefits our residents and our customers because we can provide more in the way of services to them. It does increase property values. It creates stability. We're going to be pretty stable in population. We're going to be pretty stable in households. If we have a continually growing economic base and a good place for businesses to invest, that increases our stability. And it does lead to community gain. We'll talk about that in the next slide. So next slide, please. Property values are the first benefit that all of our residents can see. And then the businesses will create a demand for existing housing, and that will help push property value higher for our residents. So housing is not going to grow tremendously based upon the way the zoning structured inside the town. So as we have investment, that will drive up property values. When businesses leave, the demand for housing falls, which will reduce property values. And you can see that as you look across parts of the Midwest where towns have experienced a decline, the property values go down as the businesses leave. Next slide, please. So part of economic development keeps the stability of the housing prices. Then we see benefits for all of the districts and by extension the residents. Economic growth provides opportunities to gain revenue for the districts that is not from the property tax paying residents that we all serve. So as we expand the non-residential property tax base, those uses will pay property taxes, but they don't bring residents that require services. So that increases the pool of money available to us as government entities. The development can also lead to long-term financial gains for all districts in the community by increasing the local district's tax base and diversifying revenue sources, business versus residents. Again, it's a diverse revenue source. So we're not relying on houses for revenue streams. We're relying on commercial uses, light industrial uses, non-residential uses to provide a property tax stream into the different taxing bodies. Vacant buildings are eligible for a 50% assessed valuation reduction, which will then cause districts to lose property tax revenue from the building and residents to pay more. So what this means, if you have a commercial building and it goes vacant, or say an Olds factory and it goes vacant, the property tax that it pays will actually reduce by half. So it's a little bit different than residential property. So if we have a vacant commercial building, it's not contributing as much to the tax base as if it were filled. So it's good to have those buildings full because they're gonna contribute the full amount. Otherwise, they can be reduced by half. And so then each one of us, Park District, Library, District 46, 127, the village, we all lose out on that. So minimally filling vacancies through economic development restores the property's value and brings full revenues to the districts from those properties. And it keeps us from having to rely on residential homeowners. So you're growing the pie, you know, without adding residents that would need more services. Next slide, please. Our community is very stable and progressing when we have new businesses come into the community. So we're a very stable community. We weathered the pandemic well. The more businesses we can get in, the better, because it helps us grow financially. Oh, my bad. The economic development serves our community and our common taxpayers. While our boundaries are not all the same, you know, you'll take in part of Haynesville, the library, I think, takes in part of Haynesville as its Park District. Many of our constituents are the same. Many of our residents we serve are the same. And even still, the more we do to benefit our shared residents, it benefits the residents we don't share as well, because it benefits the broader community, which you can see through those circles. Business growth creates more economic activity in the local economy and helps existing businesses, and it creates jobs. When we have economic growth, we can see benefit into some of the other businesses. So if we have light industry come in, we can see benefit in our restaurant sector. We can see benefit with the hotel. As you add to the business community, they often use each other for services or supply chain, so that generates more economic activity in town. The development creates a tax base that creates the opportunity to lower tax rates for residents, which gives residents more spending power in the local economy. By diversifying the tax base, we can control the rates. The rates won't grow as quickly for residents, and maybe we can even control them or keep them flat if we're getting other revenue streams in to benefit our taxing bodies. Next slide, please. When we work together, it benefits the entire community. What's interesting here, we're in Frederick School on Frederick Road, and some of you may have been around. Frederick Road was an intergovernmental project where the village was partnering with District 46 to create this road. When you look at Grays Lake, there are a lot of examples of intergovernmental cooperation between the different taxing bodies. And so this is an opportunity for us to continue that moving forward, because it benefits all of us. Because many of the residents, they don't care whether the Park District is separate from the library or the school. What they want to see is all of us working together and getting along and driving the community forward. So everything we do individually is important to making the community the special place that it is. And economic growth is something that we need to work on collectively to win the competition and serve our mutual taxpayers. When we show investment in our community and when we show intergovernmental agreement, that is attractive to outsiders who are looking to invest. Next slide, please. So the village has had some success with 3 different tools that you see here, but this slide does represent 4 tools that are commonly used by local governments. The village has used 3 of these. The village has stayed away from TIFs, so I'm not going to talk about TIFs tonight. What I'm going to focus on are 3 tools that bring immediate benefit to districts and bring immediate benefit to the businesses we're trying to attract. And those include sales tax rebate, lump sum payment, and property tax abatement. So next slide, please. So this first slide talks about one of the tools that we'll call the sales tax rebate. So a sales tax rebate will typically add up to 10 to 15% of eligible private investment. These payments are then made over a number of years, and that gives the entity an incentive to perform. So how this works, we have Sheet Metal Supply, which was based in Mundelein, so a Lake County business. They expanded, and they were looking for a new location. They were able to occupy a factory location on the north side of our downtown. So the building has an occupant, it's no longer vacant, and so that right there is a benefit. They also improved the property. They generate sales tax revenue. So we were able to work with them to give them a sales tax incentive, about, like I said, 10 to 15% of their investment in the community that we pay them out of the sales tax we receive over a certain number of years. And that gives them an incentive to perform and drive their sales and increase their sales tax so they can get part of that rebate back. Because they've filled a factory, because they're paying property taxes then, it benefits all the taxing bodies that it sits in. And so that factory sits in District 46, it sits in 127, the Park District, the Fire District, the Library, and many other districts down here, including CLC, the Forest Preserve, the Avon Township, and Avon Township Roads and Bridges, as well as the village. But when the factory is at 50%, District 46, for example, received $9,507 in property taxes. Now that the factory is fully occupied, that increased by twice. It doubled. Another $9,507 was added. So now what's coming into District 46 out of that is $19,014. And you can see it doubled for all the other taxing bodies as well. 127 went from 7,800 to about 16,000. The Park District goes from 867 to 1734. So it doubles the value immediately. And we were able to attract them here to Grays Lake by offering a sales tax rebate. It immediately doubled the amount of revenue that's collected across all the different taxing bodies. The total is $23,000 is what it paid when it was half occupied. But now that it's fully occupied, it's paying $47,527 in. So it adds to the pie. It also importantly maintains a business in Lake County. It was in Mundelein, now it's in Grays Lake, but it didn't leave and go to Kenosha. And so we do have to compete with Wisconsin. Wisconsin does a lot of economic incentives. This way we're able to keep a business, bring a business to Grays Lake, but also keep one in Lake County. And that also benefits residents who don't have to drive that far to maintain their jobs or go to work. And that is a real impact. I have literally had people thank me for keeping their place of employment in Lake County. More than once, actually, because it prohibited them or prevented them from having to drive into Kenosha. And that adds to their quality of life. Their commute's not as far, and it's actually better for the environment because you don't have a car on the road for that length of time. So it has even more than economic benefits. All right, next slide, please. We have also used lump sum payments where we'll get a business to invest and we'll give them a lump sum payment to compensate them for a portion of their investment. But it helps them be able to have some financial predictability when they're making that investment. First Draft, which is in our downtown, they opened up recently. They opened up kind of in the middle of the pandemic, but they took an old building, two old buildings, put them together. A lot of remediation work was required because of buried tanks in that area. When you crack open a building that's been in a downtown for over a century, you just don't know what you're going to find. And so this incentive was able to help keep that project moving and get them in our downtown and get them to open up. And they've been doing very well there. Before the restaurant, you can see the property taxes paid, all total $11,317 on those two parcels. Now that the restaurant is in place, the annual taxes paid are up to $138,638. So this is a great investment and bringing a lot to our overall community. The particular benefit to District 46 went from $4,500 to just over $55,000 flowing in. So with these two investments, you see District 46 are bringing over $60,000. And that helps cover certain costs. Utility costs are growing. It might buy books for the library, extra school supplies. We can do a lot with that type of revenue stream. Overall, the 10-year benefit will be $1.2 million for our community from this investment. Not to mention the economic activity it brings to our downtown, as people come to First Draft, they go to the farmer's market, they go to some of the other stores in the downtown, or do some other type of investment in our community. Next slide, please. We have also done property tax abatements. This was an abatement from many years ago to open up the southern part of the village for commercial investment pertaining to the FedEx. This is an example where we did have to compete with Kenosha County, Wisconsin to obtain this business. We used property tax abatements, about a 50% abatement in assessed value, and all the districts continue to receive property taxes during the abatement period. So this is an example of intergovernmental agreement where all the different taxing bodies worked together to provide this abatement. The ground was vacant, so there was nothing there. So we went from essentially receiving nothing or a minimal amount to receiving half of what that building is worth when it was built. And you can see the numbers here. The taxes paid during the abatement were $37,114, and then that's a 5-year period. post-abatement than the tax is paid, $16,504 annually. So right after the abatement, you're getting a half of what was paid in the 5-year period on an annual basis. And then you can see the benefits of each taxing body. But so for District 46, it's $16,000. 127 goes a little bit further south, so they're getting $242,567 there. And part of this is in Fremont, so they're getting $170,541. But the total abatement period was $1.5 million, and now the annual property tax received are over $600,000 for benefiting all the different taxing bodies there. So by doing that abatement, we got a vacant piece of ground developed, which immediately raised the property taxes that were coming in. We brought in a business that brings other customers into our town, as well as we were able to put the infrastructure in for a business park, which has generated interest. We may have some other businesses go into that business park over time here because the infrastructure is there and they can develop. Next slide, please. Here's another example of a property tax abatement. If you go to the west of where FedEx is to Medline, Medline was in Lake County. They originated here in Lake County. They have sites across the county. Their warehouse that was on 45, they needed to expand. They were looking at Wisconsin as well as staying in Illinois. Much of their workforce is Illinois, and we have part of their workforce here in Grace Lake. They make medical products. They have a large variety of medical products. What's on 45 is a warehouse. There's no manufacturing in that facility. They built a new warehouse over on the western side of town. Again, this is the far southern part of our town, so it's outside of District 46 boundaries. It's down in Mundeline's school system. But our fire department does extend down there, and so it brought benefit to the fire department. But you can see here, the vacant land itself paid $1,200 in property taxes. And now that it's been developed, the continuing benefit is $2.4 million. Additionally, we have a business park down there now that has generated other interest. We've had many parties come look at that, and I anticipate we'll see some more execution down there, which will help drive greater property tax revenues in that area. Next slide, please. Harger Lighting. Harger is over on Center Street. They are a Lake County business. They also have a location in North Carolina. Their business was growing a few years ago, and they contacted us and said, hey, our business is growing. We'd like to stay here. How can we make this happen versus going to Wisconsin? Wisconsin, very Kenosha specifically, aggressively recruited them to try to get them to cross the border. They are an example of how economic development can be somewhat like a spider web, in that one of their largest suppliers is the Grace Lake Feed Store, has materials that they supply to Harger, both this location and North Carolina, for the products they make, lightning rods. Also, they use many of the restaurants in the downtown for their business meetings, and they did provide customers, and they continue to provide customers to the hotel for conferences that they participated in and host on their facility for their industry. So they had a lot of connections into our community, and we didn't want to lose them because we do have residents who work there, but we also have connections to the other businesses in our community. So we worked together to figure out how we can get them some combination of property tax abatement as well as a lump sum payment to encourage them to stay. It's not inexpensive to move a whole factory, so we talked to them and said, okay, how can we help you make this happen? So the amount we settled on needed was $600,000. The village was able to do a $250,000 one-time payment to help out, and then we were able to work with the library, the park, and the fire district to do property tax abatement on that. It kept a factory full, and it kept jobs here in our community, and it kept the investment around. And so we were able to cobble together an incentive by working on a property tax rebate from some of the districts as well as a one-time payment from the village. And then we also got a state of Illinois grant because we were able to keep a business here in Illinois and not lose them to Wisconsin. And that amounted to $150,000. So we talked to them, we got creative, we said, okay, how can we make this work? And we went around and put together a different type of package. It wasn't one tool, it was several different tools, but we worked to make that happen. We also did work with Lake County partners on this as well. Next slide, please. I think we covered some of this, but Harger was, if it had gone vacant, we would have lost half of that value right away, and that would have hurt every single taxing body. The loss would be over $500,000 over a 5-year period. And then when you set your levy, that's gonna have to come from residents are probably gonna have to make that up, right? The expansion alone increased their taxes because they did then choose to expand that facility. So not only do we maintain a full factory at the property tax it was paying, but they expanded the facility and that added $64,000 in the first year after the abatement period. So after the abatement period, another $64,000 will come in. So District 46, had Harger left, it would have gone down to 17,000. With the expansion now, it'll be 62,000, so that's a gain of about $46,000 here for District 46. The total gain across the community is $100,000 annually coming in, and so that benefits all the taxing bodies. Plus, it keeps those economic relationships that Harger has with our hotel, our restaurants, and the feed store. Next slide, please. So this Butera on Center Street, this came in and replaced an old grocery store. The Piggly Wiggly had left and there was an independent grocery store. And so Butera, which is a chain, had expressed interest in having a location here. We worked to give them a total incentive of $750,000, which included a lump sum payment and then sales tax rebates over 10 years. So this is another combination. We gave a lump sum to help compensate for the investment in the physical structure there, and then a sales tax rebate. And again, the idea of the rebate over a period of time is that encourages them to work to grow and maintain the business. This was a redevelopment, so it keeps a building from going vacant, so it maintains the full value. And then you can see the sales tax rebate is based on the percent of local receipts, and it's capped at $500,000. So the more they grow their business, the quicker they're gonna recoup this amount. When they hit $500,000, there won't be any more of a rebate. So year one, 90%, and then it drops as time goes by. So by giving a sales tax rebate and a lump sum payment, we're able to keep the building full. We're able to get the facade improved on the building and other improvements on that site, and we're able to make sure the property taxes stay consistent and continue to flow to the different taxing bodies. Next slide, please. So in sum, economic development is in all of our interests, and this slide just gives a summary of the incentives of how it benefits us. So sheet metal supply, you can see the incentive was $175, but the annual payback is $23,000. Here the incentive for first draft $350, but now we're seeing an annual payback of $127. So these initial investments that we're making up front are continuing to pay us back and will exceed the cost that was put in there in the first place. All these definitely pay back. So if we look at the different taxing district annual property tax benefits, post-incentive by project and by district. So for sheet metal supply, District 46 gains $9,000 a year. For first draft, it's a gain of almost $51,000 a year. For FedEx, it's a gain of $16,000 a year. So this brings benefit to all of us by increasing the property tax revenue streams without depending upon the homeowners. All right, next slide, please. So we currently have opportunities within the village's corporate boundaries. There are 1,980 acres available for non-residential development. If we're able to develop all of this for business under the current tax rates, this would create an estimated $10,334,995 additional annual dollars for all of the districts in Grace Lake collectively. So by developing 1,900 acres, we could bring in over $10 million annually that would benefit all of our shared constituents. Next slide, please. This breaks it down by districts. So for District 46, again, our boundaries are not shared, but there are 165 available acres within District 46 that are also within the village of Grace Lake. And that would come out to about a $2.5 million benefit per year for the district if we were able to fully develop that. And then you can see the breakdown for each of the other entities. And again, we don't have coterminous boundaries, so these numbers are not quite the same for each entity. But we are always, as a village, we're always looking at this. How do we benefit the other taxing bodies within our boundaries as we look to drive economic development. Next slide, please. So because it's everyone's business, we'd like to ask or invite one of your board members to join in the development of a partnership with board members from the other districts. I'll be talking to the Fire District, the Park District, and District 127. I've already spoken to the Library District as well. So I'd like to invite one of you to join a group that would include representatives from those entities to create a plan for mutual cooperation for economic growth to ensure that we remain competitive in the area and competitive in Central Lake County. So I just did a lot of talking. I want to thank you for your time. Mr. Weidman, I'm happy to take questions if you'd like. Otherwise, it's your meeting, so let me know what you'd like to do.
Does anybody have any questions for the mayor? I see a bunch of head shaking. Go ahead. We'll start on this side. Jessica, go ahead.
So I am someone who appreciates all the natural spaces around here. And I wanted to know, I was curious, and I've also noticed a lot of references to sustainability in general in your newsletters, and I appreciate that. And I was wondering if there's a specific tool that you use, or if, I'm wondering many things, sorry, let me backtrack. Do you have a shared definition of sustainability across the village and the Economic Development Commission? And then do you have a tool that you've used to help make decisions so that social, economic, and environmental impact is measured?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So the Economic Development Commission's job is to focus on economic development. But none of the incentives that are shown here can happen unless it fits within zoning and planning and is approved by the village board. So the EDC looks at the economic piece of it. From a zoning and planning perspective, we require 50% open space for anything. So whether it's the FedEx or the Medline, there's an immediate 50% open space requirement. And I will tell you, I've had other mayors say to me, boy, that's a pretty high requirement. I said, yeah, but it's important to us to maintain the open space. Development plans, we also look for adding things like bike paths, landscaping. We have a preference for natural landscaping. We look and encourage leads investment. We do have the Sustainable Business Awards that we're giving, you know, the bronze, silver, and gold level, and that's been sponsored by the EDC as well. So we use a variety of tools to make certain that that happens, because we don't want to go backwards on the open space requirements, and we don't want to damage the environment in a way that takes it away from why Grace Lake is a great and special place to live. So all of those things are encouraged, and we look at those things as part of the bigger picture of approving the plan. How the lighting is done to make sure the lights face down so they don't damage migratory birds or bats in the evening. All of those things are looked at in detail, and much of that is then built into our building code and our ordinances. So those are some of the tools that we use to make sure that happens as well. It's a good question.
I have a follow-up to that,
Sure.
sorry. I'll let my colleagues ask questions too. So what helped make the decision to restore the wetland behind or near Library Lane? And maybe,
The wetland. Oh.
Yeah,
with
or Center Street? Center Street and Library Lane, I
Yes,
think?
okay.
Sorry.
Sorry. So when you look at that, yeah, so that seems, in some ways, you're removing a building, right? So is that going away from what we talked about? But land use is important, and how we manage our land use is important. We had the history from the 200-year flood, and so we were able to see how the water flows within our community. And as you indicated, there's a lot of wetland there, and it's important that that be available and preserved as watershed. And so we had a building on Center Street that was not, was long past its usable life, that was not going to be remodeled or changed, so it couldn't be restored. And so we approached that property owner and said, hey, can we talk to you, because we'd like to get access to this. Preserving those wetlands brings benefit to the entire community. It's near Mill Creek, it absorbs water, and so that was part of our thinking there. So we approached them and we worked out an arrangement. There will be a historic marker there to honor the family. As we're looking at our capital plan, We're doing a census of that ground to understand everything about it we can, so that we make sure that anything the village does maintains the wetland and the flow and the environmental sensitivity there. But can we also then turn it into an amenity for the community, like a boardwalk or something where people could go out and use that to their benefit? And then that would add something that you could see from 83 that could attract people into our downtown. So we're trying to think about it from that angle as well. I can't promise a boardwalk because we don't have all the data yet on that land, but that's something I've asked the staff to look at as we approach our capital meeting. I did get some external marketing feedback that towns that have done those boardwalks, just things like that, do attract people and say, hey, what's going on here? Let me take a look at the town, so they can have recreational benefit, preserve the environment, but maybe some economic benefit as well. Welcome.
Christopher?
As you think about the land that's available and what you'd like to bring in, I know it's zoning guides that in a large part, but optimally, what kind of businesses do you aspire to bring in?
So the first question is the zoning, like you said, because Illinois is a strong property rights state. So once property has a zone, the owners do have a lot of statutory rights for that zone. What I want to see, so if I look at what does Rhett want for Rhett's preferences, like Banana Republic or something. But that doesn't mean that we have the right market for that, for what their model is. So what my desire is that we have businesses that want to be in Grays Lake because they know they'll be successful here and they know they can sustain themselves here. But I also want them to be sensitive to our history, our sustainability goals, and our environmental goals as much as possible. So zoning's there. What's a good fit? What is our market supporting? What are the people of Grays Lake, based upon the demographic data, are they a good fit for that model? I try not to say my preferences because that can sometimes blind me to opportunities to come in. And we can't legally turn down a business based upon preference or based upon multitude. If it's a fit with the zoning, then we have an obligation to move forward with it per fax.
So when I say you, I mean the village for sure.
Right.
I want a Trader Joe's, but yes.
So that's a good example.
Don't we all?
So residents have expressed a desire for
Yeah.
that. We don't quite match their marketing.
Yeah,
data.
yeah.
So, but that's an example. If they came in, it's the right fit, it works in that.
Right.
The added benefit would be that's something a lot of residents have expressed an interest in.
For sure. So I guess that leads to just a follow-up question, which is, how proactive then are you? And are you working with businesses wanting to come in? Or are you working with property owners wanting to bring business? You know what I mean? Like, how does that
We
work?
make efforts to work with everybody. We have an
Okay.
economic development newsletter that goes out. We've hired third-party marketing firms. We had a marketing firm come in to look at marketing our downtown. We've done a lot of that activity. So we've tried multiple different strategies to bring people in. Ultimately, I would say my conclusion from looking at this is really, you do everything you can to market and show that your town's a great place to be. And then you benefit when people are looking for open sites. So we've got an open site inventory. If they contact us, we can say, here are the open sites, here are our demographics. But we have used a variety of marketing strategies too. So, and like I said, we're competing with Wisconsin, and we're competing with the entire Chicago suburban area. So there is a lot of competition.
Stephen? All right, I just have a couple more comments, and then I'll kind of go from there. So the school district has very few revenue sources, right? We have money that comes from the state, we have a little bit of federal money, most of it is property tax and some student services fees, right? Those are where our dollar amount come in.
Right.
We're in the business of educating students. So we tend to go very lean on what we're able to do as far as excess dollars.
Right.
There's not a lot of dollars to go around for us. Strange as it might be, and I had this conversation with Adam Shores the other day, was we're a tier 1 district, right? We are in the lowest tier of funded districts in the state. So we struggle many times to make a good budget to be able to expand our programs. What that causes is when you guys come to try and ask us for help in doing some of these packages, it takes money away from, in the short term, I get it, in the short term, it takes money away from our programs to be able to expand them, to be able to bring back some of the things that we've had to cut over the years because of lack of funding that comes from the state. So it's not that we don't want to help out. It just makes it very difficult for us to be able to give $40,000 away in a period of time. That's a teacher, right? When we start looking at things, we're looking at what does that benefit? What is the cost to us? $40,000 as a starting teacher, and so on and so forth. So we have to look at that much. We don't produce anything that brings in revenue, right? Everything we do is we produce kids. They go out and they get jobs and they become members of society, but nothing comes back to us, right? So it's very hard for us as a taxing body sometimes to be able to join those incentives. I can talk as on the board as far as I feel as the TIF district go. I think we all agree that we're grateful that you're not creating TIF districts, right? We've had some of those, right? We've had some of those in our district, and it's hurt us in the long term, right? So we appreciate those aren't on the table for the village. But I did have a question, and you may not know, and maybe you can get back to me on this at some point. So when you take a building like First Draft, when it comes back around to the property taxes and the levy and that, where does that fall under the new construction? Does that fall under new construction, or is that just an existing building where the property taxes and the values go up?
So the way I understand it is, I think it's divided for First Draft, and I would have to confirm these numbers or confirm the breakdown for you, but part of that was new construction and enhanced value add to the existing building. So there were two buildings there, parts of those structures were maintained, but then it was added to. So it's a combination of the existing plus the add drives the value. Not quite the same as a totally new building from scratch. But so I don't think so if you're talking about the existing versus new construction levy, I don't think it falls into that new.
Okay.
I think it's part of the existing. I would have to confirm some of that for you, but that's my understanding.
Okay.
And I did want to say to your first comment, first of all, I told the superintendent, you can see the quality of education, because I had trouble finding the room. One of the signs was placed in a way that I didn't follow. And there were two very helpful students who helped me find this room. They didn't know it was Falcon, but they said, oh, there is a meeting, and they directed me down here. So they were very helpful, very well-mannered, and very able to help me find my way here. So an example of the quality job that's being done here. But we want to participate with all the taxing bodies, so I would say the participation is help, because it brings the voice of all the districts to the same table. So that alone is valuable. And then we're able to say to potential investors, we've got all the governments united here working together. And then, if you're able to help, say for a vacant piece of property, like the FedEx, where the cost is not as onerous, that's helping, right? So we're not looking to quantify help, it's just have help. Let's work together on this.
Okay. Kristen?
Thank you. Yeah, I have a few questions. Thank you so much for coming and starting this collaboration. I'm excited about the idea of our board members working together on economic development. So I guess, but I do have a couple questions for you. You've given us a fantastic overview of the revenue that comes in, but my understanding is that revenue is only half of the picture when we look at finances. We also want to look at expenditures. So I have a few questions about the expenditures for the growth plan as you see it. So first of all, let's just take FedEx. That was open land without infrastructure. Is that correct?
Yes.
So it required new infrastructure, water, sewage, roads, and it required the maintenance of that infrastructure. So when we look at the revenue that it brought into our residents, could you also speak to the costs and who paid those costs?
Yeah, so the developer pays the costs as part of the investment. So there will be public infrastructure that's put in place. That is charged to the developer. It's funded in a variety of different ways. Sometimes other businesses would come in and invest, and there'll be recapture fees involved. The village does also calculate what do we have to pay for in the capital and what type of balance we need to do. But generally the developers, so like if you look at a subdivision, when a subdivision is put in place, the infrastructure is paid for by the development and then is eventually handed over to the village. It's meets the village's construction requirements, but the developers pick up the cost. Now, there could be recapture fees as well. Some costs may be borne by the village, like water, for example, if you extend water, but if there's not water, they can't really build. But then then they would pay for the connection fees as well, and so you recapture it through the connection fees. So if we extend water to a certain site or whatever, they're gonna have to cover that through the connection fees and everything. So generally, the developer pays for it, but we do look at any cost that village would incur. The old fairgrounds would be an example. We have a model that's structured there so that whatever development would come in, we're able to look at that template and understand what, if any, cost would be borne by the taxpayers for development to make sure it's basically revenue positive for our residents. So that's a good question. We do look at that, and we make sure that we're recapturing the costs as warranted for the investment.
So you recapture the cost of the construction of the infrastructure,
Yes.
is that correct? Did I hear you correctly that the developer also pays for the maintenance of that expanded
So
infrastructure?
it has to be built per our standards, and then the village would assume the maintenance for it, yes.
So, yes, and so when we subtract the cost of the maintenance of that new infrastructure with the tax revenue,
It's still a net positive.
it's still a net positive, but is it those numbers? Is that what you gave us?
So as Mr. Weedman was saying, the village has other revenue streams, so we do get a portion of the sales
Gotcha.
tax, we get income tax. So as we look at the village has revenue streams that are not available to other taxing bodies. We also, if you look at light industry, the water fees alone bring in quite a bit of revenue as well, plus we do get benefits from utilities. So we look at the whole picture of our revenue streams. We have a pretty extensive financial model that looks at all the different revenue streams coming in, and we use that to make a lot of decisions on these things. So when we go into these decisions, we know it's gonna be a net benefit for the community there, and that there won't be cost to the residents. So there are no hidden costs to the taxpayers, if you will.
Absolutely. Sometimes those fees are externalized to other taxing bodies, and so I was curious about the net impact, not just the revenue, but what is the net impact on our residents as we make these decisions? That would be helpful to know. I also have a question about levels of service. So when we add and build if we build more businesses on 1,980 acres, what will that do to our traffic? I'm thinking specifically about our commute times, our staff commutes sometimes into Grays Lake, and we certainly want to protect that time. And then our residents also commute other places. So if we build on all of that, what will that do to our commute times, for
That's a good
instance?
question. But I want to just follow. The net benefit is the levies should not rise as quickly for our residents on property taxes. So that's a net benefit there.
I'm sorry, I just want to write that down. Can you say that again?
So the net benefit should be, if you think about property tax as a fraction, numerator and denominator.
Right,
If you're growing the denominator faster than you're growing the numerator, then you're spreading the cost across a larger pile of property. So that should allow the levies to grow at a slower rate or even be able to be held fixed at a rate.
so slow the pace of the levy increase, is that
Like,
correct?
For example, the village has been able to function without taking the full levy on the property. And we've even been able to hold our levy below the allowed rate by law because of the other revenue streams that have been generated. So on your village property tax bill, you're seeing that levy grow at a slower rate than some of the other taxing bodies because we've been able to pull in revenue streams from elsewhere. So as we expand the denominator, we should be able to broadly control the levy across multiple taxing bodies.
Okay,
Now, so your question about traffic, so that's a very good question. It would depend on where the property is located. If we look at the southern half of the town, the county plan took into account growing that center part along Peterson Road. So they added a lot of infrastructure to Peterson to increase the carrying capacity there. And so that road could handle more traffic today than it currently does. So any investment down there, we have excess capacity that would not be taxing capacity. However, there are other parts of the town where the capacity is not as excess. And that's where we have to continue to work with the state to help encourage investment in 83 and 120. But if you look at Route 83, there are a lot of buildings there. As we maintain those buildings and drive those buildings up, we're maintaining a piece of property. We can improve the appearance, but you're not altering the traffic volume too much. So it probably depends upon where you're located in town and looking at the creative use. Also, you do something like FedEx or SIA, a lot of that traffic can actually be in the evenings and not during the day. So, and with Medline, you're just moving the traffic from one part of Peterson to another part of Peterson. So I think it's a good question, and you have to look at it. But to go back to the zoning point, if a piece of property is zoned commercially, even if the state route has not been addressed in 50 or 60 years, development can't be denied based upon the infrastructure. There are many court cases that the developer has won from that. So that's not a reason for denial, but it doesn't mean you can't take it into your discussions of planning, right?
Fabulous. Okay, thank you. My other question was about water. Is that also, so for instance, FedEx, Harder, the other businesses that Medline, that you've mentioned, they have emissions they put out into the air and the water. How do we monitor those is my first question. I think Jess asked that too, but I didn't quite understand your response. And then the second, how do we monitor air quality and water quality? And then the second question is, what infrastructure can we anticipate for stormwater management? Because we'll need to update that, and who pays, does the developer pay for stormwater?
Stormwater management is.
Or water quality management, water treatment plants, I
So
guess I'm getting
several
at.
questions there. So if we
Yeah.
talk about stormwater management, that's like any other development addition to roads, and that's handled and
By the
recaptured,
developer.
things like that. As far as emissions in the air,
Mm-hmm.
that is reserved by, that is held by the Illinois EPA.
Mm-hmm.
So any industry that has emissions has to have the appropriate licenses, and they're regulated by the Illinois EPA. So that's handled by the state. The idea there is because air doesn't pay attention to boundaries, right? It goes
Right.
wherever. So the state handles that. Any type of water emissions, as far as the drinking water that goes in, Grays Lake receives its drinking water from the Central Lake County Joint Action Water Agency, which serves most of Lake County. That's some of the highest quality water in the country coming in from Lake Michigan. It's treated there, and that goes out to every business, every community, or every person in the community. As far as what goes out of the sewer, again, depending upon their different licenses from the state, that's again regulated by Illinois EPA. So if there's any emissions going into the sewer stream, that would be handled by those agencies. We don't have a sewer plant, so it goes on to the North Shore Sanitary District, and there's monitoring through that use.
And do you have regular communication with the IEPA then, so that we get information about what's happening to our air and water?
We get regular reports if there's any concerns. I mean, we have access to all of that information as well.
Fantastic. Would you be willing to share the access with us so that we can look at the impact on air and water? That would be fantastic for.
I mean, like any annual reports they have?
Yeah, that would be great. Are those publicly available?
I'd have to look into that a little bit more.
Yeah, no worries. I'm genuinely curious. So also wanted to, last question, talk about the collaboration that you have suggested. I am in the middle of a graduate degree in sustainable management, and we had to read this book recently for class. It's called Taking Sustainability Cities Seriously, Economic Development, the Environment, and the Quality of Life in American Cities. Chapter 4 in particular is titled The Economic Development Side of Sustainability, Growth versus Smart Growth. And it addresses some of the assumptions that are consistent with traditional growth and links them with sustainable or smart growth. I was particularly enamored with a number of passages in this, and I will spare you a reading of them. But I wondered if it would be possible to share this chapter with whatever collaboration is created and do kind of a book club, book study, chapter study. It's 50 pages. That we could read that and take a look at the differences between some of the myths that are associated with traditional development and growth, and take a look at what smart growth what we've learned. For example, in the 90s, we were told that if we increased the residential housing in our area, that it would diversify our tax base, that we would receive more tax revenue and our residents would benefit. One of the one of the things I think we've all learned from this is that we are millions of dollars in debt because we had so many more kids and we had to build 3 schools in the space of a short amount of time. So I'm wondering if there might be some value in taking a look at something like this together across taxing bodies so that we could read it together, learn together, and then make decisions together so that we know when it
Any
works.
research and data are always valuable.
Yeah. So are you saying that you would read that chapter and that we would be able to get some feedback or some follow-up from that?
I'm happy to read anything you'd like me to read.
Yeah, that'd be great. Can we read it with you? Could we invite the public in so that we could have a public discussion about that? Would that work?
I'm not sure I'm quite following all the logistics of what.
Yeah, just when this collaboration, we serve our residents, and we're all, I think, committed to transparency. So I thought it might be useful to have everyone know that we're going to read, whatever we're going to read, whether it's this chapter 4 or whatever we're looking at, have a common set of information, if you will.
So any meeting of government bodies has to comply with the Open Meetings Act. And so part of that
Sure.
would be a published agenda, which could then, any information that's supporting the agenda is always available to the public through FOIA or whatever. So if a chapter of a book were provided to the different representative task force members, we would have to make that available.
That would be available for anyone, and anyone could come and be part of the discussion, not just sit and listen to us, but actually engage.
That would depend on how the bylaws of the group are structured or set up.
Gotcha,
So
okay.
if you're looking for a task force, the meeting would be similar to this, it's in public, but it's not necessarily, you're not getting participation from the public in your deliberations.
Right.
It would probably run more like a regular board meeting in a sense.
And yet, we do have the power to what is the verb that I'm looking for? To suspend.
Well, we might be jumping.
It's okay, I'm brainstorming, and that's
Yeah,
not
I was gonna say,
appropriate.
We might be jumping ahead a little bit, so.
Yeah,
we've
yeah,
gotta-
it is.
We've got to first collect the people. And
Perfect.
then we'd have to determine, how this is, what this would look like, how this would work. It would be, it would not be, it would be comprised of elected officials,
Right,
but it would be some sort of task force, and so anything coming out would be advisory to the various
gotcha.
boards for participation.
Gotcha, okay. And then just wanted to end, I looked through actually printed it, your newsletter, and want to genuinely thank you for calling attention to the Bird City designation, the Tree City designation, the Mayor's Monarch Pledge, all of those beautiful things. So thank you for
You're welcome.
genuinely, and I hope, I want to be very clear that when I'm asking questions about the idea, it's not you personally. I feel strongly about sustainability and welcome a robust dialogue, so thank
A
you.
lot of people don't know, I was a biology major, and I was actually president of the environmental group when I was in college. So
Wonderful, wonderful, thank you. Thank you for coming and starting this conversation.
you're welcome.
Appreciate it.
Ms. Nash?
All right, good evening, Mayor Taylor. So I think as we've kind of circled the room, my colleagues have touched on a number of things of interest to me. I think there's a couple of things I'd like to just double click on to go a little bit deeper. So one of the things that was a constant theme throughout your presentation that I love is just this collectiveness amongst the different taxing bodies or entities here in Grace Lake. One of the things that I'm interested in from an expense management perspective is how do we create that same level of consortium or collectiveness as it pertains to our shared expenses? And so I think, every year we start to talk about things like salt and snow removal, and it's like we all need these things, right? And so how do we work collectively to manage our expenses better around those collective needs we have?
So this probably, I can answer conceptually, the devil will be in the details, and it's probably more at a staff level, so I don't want to get in trouble here. But there are opportunities for governments to pool on like salt bids and things like that. So I would say that would be not so much a question for the elected officials, except conceptually to say, we want to work together wherever we can pool a bid. So like, for example, if you put 2 or 3 governments together to bid on salt, they can potentially get a more competitive bid. And we've done that with other villages for a variety of services like trash removal, recycling, things like that. So I'd say that probably would be at the staff level where we'd ask the head administrator of each entity to work with the others. Are there opportunities where we can question? The village has done that at other times. We partnered with Gurnee, Hansville, we have a very well-known intergovernmental agreement with the police department, right? So there's a way of consolidating there. So that can be done. I think conceptually, as long as each board's open to it, it's a matter of staff finding the right opportunities. Because sometimes you get into different rules and regulations for libraries versus, you know what I mean? So that it's a lot of that's more at, I'd say, the staff level, making sure that each set of regulations that governs them is combined, and then do we have the opportunity to pull together? So it's a great idea. I think everybody's open to it. It's just a matter of how does that fit together?
Okay.
Devil's in the details kind of thing.
Good deal. Another thing that you opened with was just talking about Grace Lake as a community and the diversity, and you showed the demographics of our community. We recently, as a district, went through an equity audit and got some really valuable learnings about things that we can do here in D46 to be more equitable and inclusive in curriculum. And when you talk about the different business types that you see coming to Grace Lake, is there anything specifically from an equity and inclusion lens that you're looking at? So I think you had indicated that you work with marketers, if you will, to do the targeting. Who's the target audience for these marketers? And does the data or where the marketers are targeting align with our demographics and where we see our demographics growing towards, recognizing that we're kind of going towards a millennial, whatever the next generation is going to be called, right, group?
Yeah, what are they going to be called? So the marketing data that we share are our demographics. So we, as much as possible, accurately represent who we are. Number of people, number of households. The demographics of our town, those are our data that we're presenting. And so we want to accurately represent ourselves. So businesses can come into a town in a number of ways, broadly speaking. And we're talking here about economic incentives, which would be kind of above and beyond, but we don't have as much latitude as, say, a normal consumer would have in making choices, because we are restricted or constrained by zoning laws and some other state laws for what you allow. So if the ground is zoned for something and it's within that zone, you have to consent to that. So we don't have the latitude a normal consumer has. So our marketing represents the demographics of the town as accurately as it possibly can. And then we do offer other things like our sustainability is important to us, the 50% is important. So those are requirements they have to meet to come in, and we can have those because they relate to how the land is used. And then we have things like our bronze, silver, gold sustainability that we encourage that leads architecture. We have an architectural matrix that we encourage. So we do that within the boundaries of what we can do. But we don't have as much choice as, say, a consumer would have.
Okay. So, and I want to thank Mr. Wildman for pulling up the generational map for me. There's Z and then there's going to be alpha. So by the time.
We run out of letters, so we have to go through the alphabet.
So, recognizing that for the Generation Zs and the alphas, Generation Alphas to come, that ESG, environment, social, governance is important to them, as well as equity and inclusion. I hear broadly the data that we share to represent who we are as a community, but is there any intentionality that we put into being involved in any type of, for lack of a better word, like a chamber of commerce or conferences to identify small minority business owners, LGBTQ communities, veteran-owned businesses, anything technically we're doing to incentivize those type of businesses to come to Grace Lake?
Yeah, that's a great question. I know that private corporations will have programs like that where we incentivize suppliers. I think the first thing, we're a town that's 125 years old, and the town has grown a lot. And I think what makes the town special is the history is not limited. It belongs to anybody who comes here and wants to make an investment and wants to be part of our community. And then they add their story to our collective history. And each story brings value and diversity to us. So I think part of that is we've been here for 125 years. We want to be here for another 125 years. And we want to be growing. We want to be developing. We want to respect our history, but we also want to be forward-looking, and make sure that we're capturing the country as it is, and that everyone feels welcome in our community. And so I think that we try to put that message out there. We're here, we're growing, we value the environment, we value our history, but we also we're forward-looking, and everyone is welcome in Grace Lake.
Okay. All right, thank you, and I look forward to the coffee chat starting back up.
I did want to say about the generations, Generation X was actually, the X was for 10. This was the 10th generation since the country's founding. So some of these shifted from Roman numerals to the alphabet, and then to Y and Z. And now if they switch to the Greek alphabet, they should standardize that.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir, for coming out and giving us the presentation. Appreciate it. We'll get back to you for a designee for the panel, as you have suggested. I don't see it being a problem of having somebody sit on it.
Okay.
So we'll have that discussion, and we'll decide, and I'll let you know who that person will be.
All right, well, I thank you for your time. I look forward to it. Got a lot of other presentations to give, so we will get back to you when you have the nominee. I'll collect it, and then we'll get back to you when we're ready to move forward.
Okay, great, thank you.
Very much.
Thank you.
Okay, next we're up to board reports. Anybody have any board reports?
Well, good, because my first thing is I wanted to thank our fellow board member Jessica Albert for organizing the bike event that's coming up on Saturday, I believe, from 1 to 3. It's a solar ride, correct? And for bringing good press to our schools, so thank you for coordinating that. Also wanted to let everyone know that the food drive is in November. We've got some tentative dates, so I'll wait till they're confirmed, but we're looking at November. They're confirmed, November 12th and 13th, that weekend, thank you. So we'll be working with a different food pantry this time. It's the Avon Township Food Pantry, which sounds very similar to the Avon Cares Food Pantry, but the Avon Cares Food Pantry has moved, and we wanted to keep the food in our local community. So we will be working with the Avon Township. So same location, same place, but a different affiliation. And then finally, and maybe most excitingly, we had our community cafe on Monday. It was, I think, well attended, and have so far gotten some really good initial feedback about how it went. I have a lot of Post-its to transcribe, and then I will tell you kind of what the results were. But that was on Monday, and thank you to everyone who could be there, and thank you to everyone who cheered us on who could not be there. Appreciate it.
All right, just wanted to share that IASB has published a communication for school board members seeking re-election or folks looking to run as new candidates in the 2023 consolidated election cycle. Petitions have been, the link to the petitions for signatures has been published and effective yesterday, September 20th. You can begin canvassing for signatures. Thanks.
Tamika, do you know when the petition season ends by any chance? If not, I can look it up.
Usually got to be in just before Christmas.
Yes, it's mid-December, but I'm
December.
not
Okay,
looking
great.
at the
Thank you.
exact date. And since the mic is back on, there are opportunities if you're a newer board member and you want to see or take a session, a webinar, any type of learning. They do offer those through IASB as well. Welcome.
Jessica?
I was just going to add something about the solar bike ride. It will feature many of the 21 miles of bike paths in our community. I wish the mayor would have still been here to hear that. But also it will feature GMS and Frederick. So we're really highlighting what we've done as a school district too. So thanks.
I'm going to continue the solar theme. So I was very, very happy to attend the library solar ribbon cutting last week with the library board and director and staff. That was really cool. And the cool thing was, as we were sitting on the front lawn of the library, we could see the solar at Grays Lake Middle School. And really nice discussion, just informally amongst community members about solar and just what the possibilities are. And I did ask when we would see the first solar project on a village project. So, love to see it on Village Hall one day. Wish the mayor was still here. But I told them the water's fine, come on in. So, but that was great. It was a good, really nice day for the community, and another just like, again, seeing, and they credited our district for the inspiration for that. So that was really cool.
I would like to share that the equity audit and the work that the Equity and Inclusion Committee is doing is having a far-reaching influence. I've had students of mine approach me about my service on the board and have asked directly about the Equity Committee because I'm not sure how they've heard about it, but they have. And involving, some of the things going on with books and so on and so forth around. So you might see some of them actually come here to visit a board meeting in our district, but I thought that was kind of cool, and I wanted to share that. I don't sit on the equity committee anymore, but I'm proud that it's continuing its work, and it seems to be rippling out into other surrounding communities. So that was just one thing I wanted to share because I thought that was pretty cool. So that's I don't have another CEDAW meeting until December, so you'll hear about it in the new year.
Okay, I just have two things. One, we need to have a discussion about a delegate for the ISB resolutions that are coming up in November, really quick. So we'll need to kind of ask somebody to take the lead on that, to take a poll of the board, decide which way the board wants to have the delegate speak on our behalf at the meeting. And then there'll be an alternate as well for that. That's that November meeting, the III conference in November. The other part that I would like to talk about is I was home the other day and I did get a knock on the door from a politician that was running for state office. So I was, it was Adam Shores, but as I was talking to him, it came to mind that when the politicians come to your door, now's a good time to talk to them. Find out what they're for, find out what they stand for, and advocate as board members, obviously, for the school district, right? I was able to have a real good conversation with him about, where we're at financially, the Tier 1 district, and why we're at a Tier 1 district, and explain it to him, and because he was unaware that we were a Tier 1 district. And then advocate for them to try and find more funding at the state level, however they do that, either from gambling receipts or the marijuana receipts or new sales tax or however that is. It's an opportunity for you to talk to the politicians and find out where they stand on not only the social issues, but also on how they're gonna fund the school district. Because some of them are actually from this town. Actually, the two that are running are from Grays Lake. So it is very important for you to kind of keep peppering them with the information that we need to try and get more funding into the school district. So as you see them, don't, a lot of people ignore the door. My wife yelled and said, come get the door, so I got the door. So with that being said, just, make sure this is an opportunity to talk to them. And I encourage that to everybody who's out there and to talk to the politicians and get to know them, because the better politicians we have, the less problems we have, and so on and so forth. So that's my little soapbox.
Mr. Weedman, before we advance, can I give an update to the date that signatures need to be turned in?
No. Yes.
The due dates are between December 12th, and December 19th. Mr. Weedman has me all thrown off. So candidates who are going to submit signed nominating petitions need to have them in between December 12th and December 19th, 2022.
Anybody has anything else? Okay.
You know what, I did have one check-in, because with our transition with assistant superintendent, we used to have a plan about how we were gonna talk about the equity committee outputs.
Go for it.
Are you sure? Okay, but please chime in. We had an equity committee meeting the first of the year. Just nice to see everyone again. It was on Zoom. And we heard from Dr. Dubiel. She came and covered the recommendations from the committee. We had a great conversation with a lot of good questions, and she's actually going to come back next month to continue the conversation with us. So this was good. Yeah, same presentation she gave, I believe, at the August board meeting. And that was really the bulk of the meeting, unless the two of you have anything else that you would want to add to it.
Thank you. I would just add that we started our meeting by talking about the different learnings and work that members of the Equity and Inclusion Committee did over the summer under the heading of Equity and Inclusion, and people shared lots of information about reading that they had done and thinking that they had done, and it was kind of a really nice way to start the year.
Okay, we are up to the superintendent report.
All right. Well, I too wanted to spend a moment talking about the community cafe on Monday night. I had the pleasure of being invited, so thank you, and was able to go, and it was really a remarkable evening. You know, Jessica and Christy did such a wonderful job of putting together an evening of connection and excitement of people who are in some way connected to, I'm going to say, the grounds of School District 46, right? So whether they have children who are in their district or their community members who live here or near here, there was just a lot of great conversation. So thank you both for planning that. And I just have to state, Christy Miller's facilitation skills are really off the charts, really amazing. And as I told, you probably all know that she's a former high school teacher, and I commented how much I would have liked to have been in her class. So it's really something. The age doesn't work out for me to have been in your class, but that's not the point. Yeah, it wouldn't have worked well. But anyway, and I'm going to hand it over to Amy to talk about the district equity leadership team.
So we had our first DELT, or District Equity Leadership Team meeting this week, Monday. And as you may remember, that was a result of the equity audit. And this was the group that's coming together to really spend some time talking about developing our equity action plan based on the results from the audit. And so we had 25 members that are participating, staff and administrators, and Dr. Dubiel was here to help lead us in the work and had us working in the 5 strands. So you may remember back when she gave the presentation that there's a system strand, teaching and learning strand, professional learning strand, student voice, climate and culture strand, and then family and community as agency. And so got into those strands and really started looking at the findings and spending some time looking for priorities and starting to develop our next steps by strand group. And so we will be meeting again in November, and she'll be coming back and helping to continue to lead us in that work. So the purpose of DELT is to create next steps so that we can start with all of the work within the district beginning in February. So really excited. It was a great day and everyone was really involved. So we were in this room all day.
Yeah, it was a great day. Thank you, Amy. I'm going to hand it over to Chris Wildman to talk about a report that he's just getting us started moving forward with.
Okay, thank you. The district has engaged with Dr. John Casada for an updated demography study and enrollment projection. The district last worked with Dr. John Casada in pre-pandemic 2018, and every 2 to 4 years, school districts look to update their projections. Dr. Casara is one of the leading researchers and commentators on urban economic development and demographics in the United States. Dr. Casara has conducted more than 250 demographic studies and enrollment projections for Chicago suburban school districts over the past 40 years. The report will have a series of 3 enrollment projections by year, by grade, through 2032-33 for each school. They will be called A, B, and C, the maximum, minimum, and what we call the expected. And a very clearly written summary report will be presented to us, and we can bring that to you to be provided to the district within 45 days of the engagement.
Thank you. Because we like to highlight the accomplishments and involvement of our team members, we've asked that Stephanie Diaz speak for a moment about her involvement in the Visiting Teachers Governing Board.
Yes, so I have just been asked to be part by ISB and then the Division of the International Teachers to be on their planning committee and looking to continue to invite visiting international teachers from different countries. And our first meeting is October 31st.
Making us proud, so thank you. And finally, I just wanted to update the board on a few matters under the heading of communication. So looks like we're about between 1 and 2 months out of completing our new website. We're still working on that project, and we're excited for that to continue. And you maybe have heard me talk about strategic plan posters that we've been working on, and I have a prototype to show you tonight. So, can you help me? Sure. Thank you. So Leslie brought this to me Leslie brought this to me today. So you can see it has our mission, our vision, our values, and our goals all together in one document. We will be, we're going to make it a little bit bigger so that it'll be a little more apparent, but we will be making copies of this to hang all over the district, in all of our buildings. There'll be one in this room, a little bit bigger, probably on some kind of a canvas background. It's still a prototype. Leslie's eye noticed right away that the color blue wasn't perfect. So, we're working on those things, but we'll have this done soon. We wanted you to see it. We're excited. Thank you. All right. And she asked me to bring this card that came with the posters that says, I can't read it. I'm not wearing my glasses. But the point is that every time they make a poster, Canva plants a tree. So they wanted you to know that. Yeah. All right, that's it for the superintendent's report.
Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you. I do have a request for the demographic and enrollment study from 2018. Can you reshare that with the rest of the board, because there are a few that weren't here at the time when we did it?
Yes.
Thank you. That way we have something compared to. Okay. Next, I need a motion to approve the consent agenda, including the addendum to the personnel report.
So moved.
Second. Braden.
Aye.
Nash.
Aye.
Albert.
Aye.
Miller.
Aye.
Mack.
Aye.
And Weedman.
Aye. Next are action items. First item is a motion to approve the school maintenance project grant, round 1 application. Chris gave us a memo it was to help pay a little bit. It was $50,000 grant to go towards all the projects that we have going on with the buildings. It's just kind of a small reimbursement for some of that. So, oh. Nope. Okay. So if I can have a motion to approve that.
So moved.
I'll second.
Anybody? There.
Weedman.
Aye.
Miller.
Aye.
Mack.
Aye.
Nash.
Aye.
Braden.
Aye.
And Albert.
Aye.
Okay. Next is a motion to approve the fiscal year 2022 tax levy timeline that was put out. We haven't done this before in the past, so I'm trying to, so if you want to just kind of elaborate, it's just kind of come into the regular schedule, so that's why I ask.
So to assist the district and the community in following this, what is a pretty complicated process, the designate, it basically states, the law states that we should present this to the community so they know what's happening next. So it's approved, and I can talk a little bit about it if you'd like.
Sure.
Okay. Okay, the timeline itself, we have the preliminary discussion of the timeline on October 26th at the regular board meeting. The tentative 2022 tax levy will be discussed, and we will approve the publishing of the public notice. That will be actually published in the newspaper on October 27th. And at the November 16th regular board meeting, we'll have the public hearing, and then the final levy will be adopted by the board, and then that must be filed with the Lake County Clerk by the last Tuesday of December 27th.
Okay. I'm sorry, did we do a motion or second? So I'll make a motion to approve it, the timeline.
Second.
Braden,
Aye.
Albert,
Aye.
Miller,
Aye.
Mack,
Aye.
Weedman,
Aye.
and Nash.
Aye.
Okay. Next is a motion to approve the closed session meetings, closed session minutes for possible release.
So I'm thinking about how we put this into the board agenda, because we're not actually approving anything, because we're not releasing anything. So I think we're probably approving that we're not releasing anything, which is very awkward. But there was nothing, this is closed session minutes from December 2021 to May 2022, and there are no minutes that are appropriate to be released publicly.
Okay,
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Albert,
Aye.
Mack,
Aye.
Braden,
Aye.
Miller,
Aye.
Nash,
Aye.
and Weedman.
Aye. Now we're up to unfinished business, and we are to the update of building and grounds summer work.
Good evening, everybody. Mr. Weedman, I hope you got your ears on. Here we go. I saw you walk in like this tonight, so I was giving you a little bit more. I promise everybody, I will not make it as long as the couple hours that him and I spent walking through. You'll get the shortened version of it, because at the end of the day, there was so much that was done that the short amount of pictures and small does not fully cover it. We'd be here for hours. But I would like to start off with a big shout out and a big thank you to the operations and maintenance team for all the hard work that they put in throughout the summer, along with taking their vacations and time off and resting. They made it possible for all the staff and students to come back at the start of the school year, nice and relaxed, to a safe and clean buildings, I should say, which is what we all look forward to. But over the summer, some of the things that you will not see within these pictures are normal every summer routines, from cleaning of our lockers, changing locks, the grounds on the outside. Let's see, walking some of our inspections through, from all of our sprinkler inspectors to our fire extinguishers, cleaning of our kitchens, all of our equipment everywhere, going through our roofs, making sure our gutters are cleared, drains are cleared, certain things that just help out throughout the community to make it look better, cleaner, nicer, painting inside of our buildings, trying to do everything we can to keep the buildings looking clean, neat, and ensuring that they are at that time too, along with doing preventative maintenance on a lot of the equipment that we can't do when staff is in the buildings. From changing of filters to belts to greasing equipment, pressure washing our sidewalks, our entrances at our buildings. And like I said, the list can go on and on and on, so I will not go through it all, but if you walk around and you look around, I think our buildings pretty much speak for themselves in a lot of the times when you look. Brandon, please, thank you. Welcome back. I know we're a month into school, but welcome back. That's what you saw when you walked into Avon. Nice, welcoming, welcome back. I took it just because it's the start of the school year. I wanted to show everybody it. This is what we're here about. Next, please. As you can see over at Avon, the hallways were painted. The previous summer, we had the classrooms that were painted. The colors that were going down the hallway were just older, yellowing, brightened it up. Nice white. Actually, I say white, but Miss Lorenzo will tell you that it's more of a gray. She had to tell me otherwise on it, but it's a lot brighter. It's welcoming. If you notice there where the TV's at, there's 2 signs on the wall, and actually posters. If I'm not mistaken, it says welcome in different languages. How many was it, Ms. Diaz, do you remember? 54. 54 different languages, and they actually had them framed. So I got the pictures before they were framed. Next, please. Over at Avon, we've done a lot of work over this past summer, and it's still continuing as we speak. This work here also has been done at another school. This is part of our 1 to 3 year capital improvement priority list, and that is our building automation. Previously, our building automation that we had no graphics to it. We really didn't have much control over anything. With the new building automation that we have put in place, you can actually see all the equipment as it's running. This is more of child's play, but it helps out when you get down into it, because you can see the way the pumps are moving, flow is moving. If the graphic is not moving, it is not moving. There's smart sensors that go into it all to be able to ensure that the equipment's running as it should. Another great part about our building automation system that is going in place here that you don't see on the front end is the ability to be able to take the KPI out of it, so that down the line we can take it and see exactly where we are on all of our energy and how we're utilizing our system. All the reports come to us, and we can customize those reports along with Train gets them, and Train will go, oh, we can tweak this, we can save here. It helps us out as the years go on and on. Next, please. Avon Center School's original boiler. So we're going back to 1950s there. It's an old Burnham boiler that was retrofitted many years ago. That's on the right-hand side. On the left-hand side, it's kind of off in the distance there, but there's an older hot water tank that's about 25 years old. Both of those pieces of equipment have been removed. I could not tell you the exact efficiency on the water tank on the left, but that boiler at this point was probably running between 40 to 50 at best efficiency. So if you think about it on your dollar standpoint, for every dollar you spent in gas, 50 cents of it went right up through the chimney. So we were not able to fully utilize it. The new boiler that is going in, it's down in the basement as we speak right now. They're working fast and hard to get it started up for the October 15th Illinois startup date. That is by law when we have to have them, but they're looking for October 1. The new boiler has the potential of going up to 96% efficiency when all said and done and tuned in. The hot water tank that they did install, that is also 94 to 96% efficient, depending on how it's running, how it's burning, how clean. So they are both high efficient equipment. along with that, the building automation, the unit ventilators, the boilers, the hot water tank, and the projects that we are working on over at GMS, when all said and done, we will be putting into ComEd for rebates. So we will be able to take energy money and get that back to put into other projects down the line, which will also help with the grant that the 50/50 grant too, because all that money will work towards our future projects to continue our energy savings. Next, please. Just another picture on the right-hand side. That is the new high-efficient hot water tank that's in there. On the left, those two were where the boilers used to sit that are no longer there. Along with that, I should add to it, the new boiler system that's going into place is going to have what's called a primary and a secondary loop to it. That primary and secondary loop also helps with the efficiency on the boilers and how much they run. When there is no call through the building, that boiler ramps way down low, but it keeps the hot water going through that primary loop until there's a call. The valves will open up and allow the hot water to flow through the building on the mixing side of it. And that will always keep hot water through the building at all times on it, and lowers your actual run rate on it. Next, please. Grays Lake Middle School. Over the summer, we replaced 5 rooftop units. At the last board meeting, Mr. Weedman also noted as to how, as we were walking through, they went, one of the teachers mentioned how he hadn't had air conditioning in who knows how long in his room. Right there is the crane lifting his actual unit. I was there, and so it's kind of comical that he actually talked about it, because that was the last unit to actually go to the roof. And on the left-hand side, the unit on the right is his actual unit that they pulled off. His was the smaller of the two. The other one is the art room unit there. All the way on the right-hand side, those units there that you're looking at, those are for the science labs. Then the other one that we replaced was for the library. Next, please. Just a couple more pictures of it where the actual truck bringing it in. Got a nice little aerial shot of all the units as they were already placed up on the roof. And you do get to see the solar pictures of them. Next, please. Can hit play on that, because this is the exciting one to me. For anybody who has never seen a gym floor be stripped, they come through, and it took them days. They came through riding on these machines, and literally taking out these bags and taking out the bags and dumping all this fine wood particles. And truthfully, you would have thought it would have been a huge mess. It really wasn't that bad. But I will say my guys had fun afterwards, because they got to climb the walls to clean up into the vents and take care of everything afterwards. Next, please. That gym floor was the original gym floor from when that gym was added to it. Next, please. Just a little picture of it. That is GMS's new Panther sign, but the logo comes up next, please. And that is the actual shine to that floor now. As you're on it, it's gorgeous looking. It really is. The plan is, next please. The plan is for over next summer to actually get the gym painted with the new logo on it and spruce it up there too. Once again, just another quick shot of the building automation that was partially done over at that building with the new rooftop units. Obviously, like I had mentioned, we had 5 rooftop units that were put up there, but there was another rooftop up on that roof, so Trane went ahead and pulled it in, knowing that they were already going to be taking care of it down the line. They figured might as well do it while they were at it. So we went ahead and pulled 6 units into the new building automation, along with the replacement or rebuild of 19 VAV boxes up in the ceiling for the heating systems throughout the building. I'm sorry, can you go back one slide, please? Off to the left there, that is where all the garbage cans sit in the back. It seems minor, but at the end of the day, Park District walks through there. People walk through that trail all day long, and garbage cans just sat out there. So we went ahead and we put a fence and gate around it. It also helps us stop, I know this is horrible, but it stops people from actually using our garbage cans. Next, please. Over at ECC, just a little picture of some work that was done at the entranceway, but realistically, it's stuff that's happening throughout our district. I have it up there just so we can kind of see what we're looking at and what we're doing for our safety throughout our district. Next, please. Over at Frederick School here, we had the new roof put on. Over 1 million square feet of roofing shingles that were put on, along with we had some flat surfaces, like I had stated before. We had 13% of our insulation that was replaced. All the rest of it was recoated, which gave us another 20-year warranty on the recoating of our roof. Saved us some good money by doing it that way. Off to the left there, just some doors that we needed to have replaced out in the back over on our receiving dock here. It was all rusted out through the years, and just you could basically open it with your hand, even if it was locked. So we went ahead and we replaced those doors. If anybody could tell, I got a new toy to play with. I do have a complete picture of the whole entire gym, too, a video of that. It's a neat little toy, and it can help in so many different ways, but, you know, how many times do you actually get to see that aerial of your roof as things are happening? So it was fun. Next, please. The room you are sitting in. I know we started it in spring, and we've talked about it, and we've seen it. But just some pictures on the left there of when they actually started tearing up this floor so that they can put the floor down in here. And off to the right, that is how it looks when we are in training and we have people in here. Obviously, I don't have the pictures of everybody in here, but the way it's set up. And then the board meeting set up in the middle there for our Falcon room here. And that was just a brief overview of some of the things that we did over the summertime. Once again, there was so much more that went into it. And like I said, I wasn't going to keep you here long on it, but that's all in part of our operations and maintenance team and some of our outside contractors and everybody here allowing us to do this. Thank you.
And, I got a feeling you're going to have a couple questions.
Yeah.
But first off, one, thank you for taking me around. I joke about my ears being gone, but that's okay. What was refreshing for me was to hear some of your ideas for the future uses of our building, from the cafeteria at Park, or not Park, at Prairie View, and other things that need to get kind of in your vision, right? It was refreshing to hear that. So I would encourage you to continue to share that, not only with the board, but with Dr. Glickman. So that aspect was nice. And also I want to, I don't know if anybody else has noticed, Adam doesn't talk about what Adam did. Adam talks about what his team did. And that is very important. He seems to be building a nice, strong team in the operations and maintenance department. So I wanted to thank you for that.
Thank you.
All right. So I know, Mr. Halpern, you said you didn't want to just exhaust this thing, but I think it was worth exhausting. That's a ton of due diligence. by you and your team, led by you and executed by your team. I joke with Mr. Wildman that you probably built those garbage fences on the weekend in your garage. You brought them in. You can just, the passion and the commitment to this work, to optimizing our spaces here in District 46, you've truly taken it to heart, and you live, breathe, and ooze like the strategy and the passion for everything that you do out of you. So I thank you and your team for that. And then I just have to give a special shout out for that GMS gym room floor. So my son, who was in 8th grade last year, he's now at Central, had the benefit of going back with Kid's sister, who was going to GMS for back to school night. And as we're making our rounds through her schedule, he like comes in like barely, almost knocks me over. And it's like, Mom, you can't believe Mr. Smith got the gym floor fixed now and we're going. He's like, we knew Marcus hated us. And I'm like, and so he's like, that gym floor rocks. It's amazing. So, you know, even with the kiddos, if you haven't heard it bubbling up from the kids, the floor is absolute. All the projects are amazing, but that one really is just like knocking the leather off the ball. So good job.
Thank you very much.
Christy?
So I also want to thank you for all this work and also apologize for coughing. I do not have COVID, just so everybody knows. It's just the residual of a cold. That said, I was wondering if you could teach us a little bit about BAS, and I think that's the building automation system. Why did you prioritize that, and then why prioritize GMS and Avon? So I want to be really clear, it's not a criticism. I'm not saying you shouldn't have. Could you help us understand your process more?
Sure, absolutely. So GMS and Avon, well, we looked at the district in a whole when we walked with old and train. We knew we had old equipment that had to be taken care of. We also know that our building automation system that we have is very antiquated, probably by 7, 8, 9 years. A lot of it is obsolete, and things needed to start getting changed. So when we go ahead and we start changing out equipment, your larger equipment, you want to get the backbone of it so that your front end talks to your back end. So when I talk front end to back end, your equipment is your back end of it, and your building automation is your front end. So think of it, your brain to your mouth, okay? Your brain is thinking, your mouth is speaking. It's the same thing in the building automation and the mechanical aspect of it. The building automation tells your equipment what to do, and it's doing it. To get your full maximum efficiency out of it, you want to kind of do them both together if it's that far behind. Well, we knew that the equipment that we were changing over at both schools were between 25 and 50 years old. So to go ahead and change our building automation was really a no-brainer within it, because at the end of the day, our payback on it comes so quickly. And when I say so quickly, that payback will be within 6, 7 years on it, which you look at a payback and you're like, oh, well, why isn't it now? But it is now. You instantly start getting those dollars back. You just don't see the full aspect of it. So to be able to control it as easily as we will, and to be able to show it to everybody, this was the smartest way to go about it. Now, in a 1 to 3 year, we plan to have all 7 buildings under that umbrella of the automation. Our largest portion of it came from Avon and GMS because of the equipment we had to change at the same time. So that is why we picked those two to do together. We also get our largest rebate back from ComEd by doing those with the equipment over there at the same time.
And then my other question is, as a board, we're supposed to monitor, right? That's our job. So is there anything, does the BAS include a sub-metering system? And is that even an appropriate, is there any information we could use as we're monitoring district progress that we could communicate out to our residents?
So on a yearly basis, we can do 6 months basis as the system is built and completely 100% operational, because as of right now, it's pieced in as they're going along with it. As they're adding equipment to it, they're building that whole entire building automation. They have it set up and ready to go, but adding more to it. Our electrical meters, gas meters, everything will be added to it, so that we can see how much they run, how much each equipment runs, the timing on it, the KPIs on it. It will give us a whole entire runtime, downtime, any kind of reports we wanted to run. We have a dashboard for it that we can go back and look at and also pull data off of.
Okay, dashboard is a favorite word of mine right now. So can we
It's got widgets.
Can we somehow integrate that with, with the district dashboard? Is that a possibility? I'm not asking for a commitment, I'm just, is it possible to link that so that the public can see it?
So I'm going to say yes, but I'm going to say more to come, because I'm not going to give you an answer that I don't fully know, but I can hear the sales pitch now saying, yes, it's there. It's like I almost recall it. I don't see why not, though.
Great, thank you so much.
Absolutely.
No, I don't have any questions, but I would just add my thanks for such a refreshing presentation. I haven't enjoyed building pictures in such a long period of time as much as I enjoyed those pictures today. So I'll tell you that right now. And if you ever need any help with that drone, let me know.
Absolutely.
They'll be happy to crash it.
I'll practice with you, yep.
I'm not gonna say I haven't crashed it.
Yeah, no, well, yeah.
Don't fly it in-house.
Christine?
I'm good, thank you so much, Mr.
Jessica?
I just want to say thank you too. I agree with Stephen. I didn't know what a building automation system was, and so I really appreciate this. And I was super pleased to see in this book the most comprehensive plan ever proposed to reverse global warming. Updating building automation systems is in the top 50 things that we can be doing for the planet. So, way to go.
It's you know, real fast on it as we do it, and we're adding all the sensors to it, smart sensors. That actually helps understand and lower our carbon footprints within. So we're getting there. We're getting there.
I'll just add to it helps us have a common language about it, that we can talk about it. So, and then when we can talk about it, we can do something about it. So thank you for considering our future generations too.
Absolutely.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, everybody.
The only thing I have to ask is, or maybe in about a 6-month or towards the end of the year, maybe do a cost comparison to our utilities for those buildings, because that'll probably be the true measure of how well they're doing, right? What you were doing with the 54% efficient boiler versus a 94% efficient boiler, something along those lines. Somewhere, maybe after the winter, because that's when you're going to use the boiler the most anyways. Just keep it in the back of your head to share out at some point.
Absolutely. Will do.
Okay. Now we are up to discussion of the world proposal for utilization and capacity study and educational alignment report.
Okay, so before we dive into this, I'd like to read for you all the district facilities goal from our strategic plan. I think it's important to remember this while we evaluate the proposals on the agenda. Review, expand, and clarify the comprehensive master facilities plan on an annual basis to continue to create equitable, quality learning environments, both inside and outside of the buildings, to serve our students, staff, and communities with a focus on aligning decision-making to district goals. So in furtherance to that goal, the administration invited our architects, WALD, to discuss the next steps in the Board of Education's long-range facilities plan. At the September 7th Finance Committee meeting, Mike Icahn, the associate from Wold, gave an update on their recommended steps. At that meeting, he presented a proposal for a utilization and capacity study to assist the board and administration in assessing the current classroom utilization and capacity of our buildings. He also presented an educational alignment report to assess the educational adequacy of our classrooms. So I'd like to talk about both of these proposals. The utilization and capacity study, as presented, will provide analysis of the current utilization and student capacity of educational spaces within our schools. This is helpful as it helps us verify the uses of our learning spaces today. WOLD will provide a report and presentation to the Board of Education on its completion. This may be useful to the board as we plan the future of our facilities. This has a fixed fee of $17,500 with an estimated timeline from engagement to completion of 3 months. The second proposal is an educational alignment assessment. Will evaluate how adequate a school building is to deliver future-ready instructional curriculum. These assessments can be particularly valuable where older buildings need to be responsive to future growth and changing educational delivery models. To accomplish this, our architects will meet with educators and administrators to collect data on programmatic needs in the future. WOLD will also conduct a workshop to engage our community, staff, students, parents, to gain innovative ideas and their unique voices and perspectives. The report will benchmark with the district with recognized educational standards. A few areas, I'm not going to go into all of them, would include outdoor classrooms, STEM and STEAM laboratories, dining facilities, special education, and small group collaboration areas. Each school can be compared using a scoring system if the district desires to rank the buildings based on the adequacy findings. This has a fixed fee of $35,000 with an estimated timeline from engagement of 8 months. Both of these reports will benefit from an updated demography study and enrollment projection, which was mentioned earlier in the superintendent's report. I'd now like to turn it over to the board for discussion.
Does anybody have any questions, concerns? Sure.
Thank you for the update, Mr. Waldman. So I'm just thinking back and, I'm having a senior moment, so bear with me. When Wold was here months back, was that more of the building view and this is kind of paring it down to a classroom view? Like, help me distinguish the difference between those two.
So the first report that they presented in November and was board approved in December was a facilities, which was building envelope and all those types of things. And then we also had a second report, which was from Train, which is some of the things we were just talking about, which is building automation, indoor air quality handling units, and an upgrade of the buildings in terms of indoor air quality. This is I think I mentioned a certain cake I talked about, and I said that this was the third layer of that cake, and this is the educational alignment side. So this is starting to look at how our classrooms should look in the future. So the first report is where are we at today? What are we actually using our classrooms today? That'll be the first report, which will be delivered in 3 months. And then the longer study, which has more of a community engagement component, which will be helping you as a board understand where you wish to go in terms of what your classrooms wish to look like in the future.
Okay.
And I did talk about that back in November, but now I'm actually bringing a proposal to you because it's time.
Okay. All right. Thank you for that refresh. I see there is content around outdoor spaces, which I know has been a topic of interest of this board for a long time, so I'm really interested in that. One of the topics, though, that jumps off as I'm trying to understand really the WIFM, like what's in it for us, is around technology and the instructional needs and flexibility. So I'm thinking about the technology plan that we have rolled out. And Ben, is it BenQ? Ben? Thank
So
you. Okay.
Yes.
And how does what Wold will be assessing in the space integrate or intersect with the BenQ and technology plan that we just went through?
So they will integrate it entirely based on what we've actually presented and has been board approved as a roadmap for the future. They will actually integrate all that, all those components from an instructional curriculum perspective in the educational alignment report. So they would obviously look at that. We've already, as a board, said that this is something that we wish to look at. We've already kind of outlined that. What they would be able to do is okay, maybe add some flesh to that, you know, see what it might look like as they start to either have a community engagement component, talk to educators, or talk to the administration.
Okay, thank you.
I just wanted to jump in for a moment. I was actually going to do a demo with this new poster, but it'll be too hard. I just wanted to mention that what WOLD is proposing to our board speaks directly to the facilities goal that was created through the strategic planning process, and specifically the work that was outlined from this year. So you may remember back in, I believe it was June, we shared what work was kind of bumped out for this school year. And under this facility strand of creating equitable facilities, we have planned to assess facilities to consider equitable, quality learning environments with staff and community input. And this is a way to do that work. And under the strand of creative use of land and buildings, we have consider options for creating, expanding outdoor learning spaces at our schools and consider next steps for the schools that didn't have them. So again, this is a roadmap for actually doing that work.
Christy?
So this is just a comment actually for a board to think about. Our mission talks about cultivating community, and our schools sit and are not operating in a vacuum. So I'm wondering if it's possible to ask WOLD to assess 2 more things, and maybe you can tell me if this is possible or not, and I don't know if the rest of the board wants this or not. But what is the impact of these improvements on our neighborhoods? So if, I don't know what those impacts might look like, but our schools are neighborhood schools, and it seems to me that we might want to know how our schools are impacting our neighborhoods because of that focus on cultivating community, and also because we have focused on the social implications of the school district in our EDI work. So I'm just throwing that out there as a possibility for our consideration, and then we can talk about whether it's possible or not. I don't know. But then also the building's impact on the local environment, so specifically air quality and water quality and soil quality. Is that something that our board would want more information about? Is it possible to get that from an assessment? So just a thought off the top of my head as I was reading through this. And then I do have a question for you, and if you don't know that, could you ask, please? Because I'm guessing you won't, but what are the deliverables from the workshop to engage the community? Like, we'll bring people together, and what are the results of that? And then what do you do with it, and what do we do with it?
So I believe when we talked with Mike and he was explaining this to us, he talked explicitly about student voice, about specifically talking to students. It was very important that WOLD, the architectural team, would talk to teachers, they talk to educators, and talk to the administration. A workshop would be part of that as well, to allow the community to come up. I think the phrase was innovative ideas. I'm not quite sure what the word was, but I think they just really want to hear brainstorm, think tank ideas to be able to see what that condenses down to in terms of what's doable in terms of the district's budget, what is actually attainable via the physical constraints of the building. If we're not actually building a new school, what can we do in a building which is being modernized? So I think what it does is it just gets as much input as we can about what we can accomplish, and it allows us to do probably some prioritization, which is essential because the architect will deliver a report to us and it becomes the Board of Education's report. You then get to decide and tell us, the administration, what you wish to do. and then we will go away and try and figure out a way to fund it. So it will be a little bit like what happened with the facilities report, where they came up with $15 million worth of work, and we said we only got 9. And then we came up with 9.2, and that's what we're doing. They're going to have a funnel amount of information, and we're going to condense it into something which is more realistic. So that's probably, I'm guessing it will be something similar to that, and it'll have a dollar attached to it too.
So this is just an FYI, I've seen, or I've heard about, I've heard about districts that have done, or architectural companies who have actually had their residents build prototypes, and those prototypes become a deliverable. That's super exciting to me. And the next is just a clarifying question. Can we also include past, current, and future parents, not just existing parents? Is that a possibility or not? So again, not looking for an answer or a commitment right now, just a thought.
I think it'll be open to the whole community. I don't think it's just going to be parents. I think it would be open to anybody who wishes to attend the workshop.
I don't think I have a specific question, but I do agree with what Mrs. Miller said in terms of the impact on the environment. So I would be one that would like that information. That's always important to me. I'm happy to see special education on here. That's always been something particular to me. I want to make sure that, I know it's part of a long list of things, but you know, I've been at schools that have, you know, significant improvements to classroom utilization, depending on where they are and what type of income comes into those schools. And with that equity and inclusion lens, I want to make sure that those populations are part of the whole thing. That's my only, it's a comment more than anything. I know it is, it always has been a hallmark of this district. And as we start to make these improvements, I want to make sure that you know, remains part of that. And I know it will, but just kind of my thought process there, but yeah.
Christy?
Just building on that, I do like the idea of scoring the buildings, because then I think it gives us a chance to practice equity, to say, okay, some buildings may need more than others to get to the right place for some of these. So I do really like that idea.
Jessica?
I agree with a lot of what all of you all have said, so I would support finding out more information about some of those things, especially knowing that a lot of people that I've met, newer families, came because of the neighborhood schools, the amenities of the community around, and so knowing the grounds near the schools to the park district's grounds, all that is beneficial. And I would also like to include past parents, because if they've been involved in any past projects, they have a stake in what happens in the future too. So thanks.
Okay. I think you got some direction, correct? Okay. All right, so I assume we'll see that at a future meeting. And next, we have topics for future agenda items.
At our next board meeting, I believe we will be bringing these WOLD proposals back as an action item, which I've just added. Also, at our next board meeting, we will have a presentation from Adam Petraglia, presenting some thanks to our school district for a project called Bricks of Hope. And then I think the board wants to have discussion about Mayor Taylor's presentation, specifically the idea of partnership with other districts for economic growth. So you want that as a discussion item? Okay, that's what I've got for the next meeting. October.
And then appointing a delegate.
Delegate, yep. Okay. October 26th, Mr. Wildman will talk about the tentative tax levy. all right, do a presentation on that. And then I have a whole bunch of things for way in the future. That's all I've got at the moment.
Okay. Sounds good. And I think, well, I don't think, I know, I skipped over the public comment on the beginning of the agenda. So it's back to public comment, and I'm looking at the one person in the audience. I have a feeling that she has nothing. Sorry. And then we do have a need for, I assume there was nothing, right? Okay. Then we have a need to go into a closed session, so I'd like to make a motion to go into closed session.
Second.
Nash,
Aye.
Miller,
Aye.
Mack,
Aye.
Albert,
Aye.
Weedman,
Aye.
and Braden.
Aye.
Okay, we do not expect to take any action on coming out of a closed session, so we'll be just closing the meeting afterwards.